All right, welcome back to the Clinical Leadership Podcast. My name is Dr. Alex Earl. I am with Tim Gabbett here. And for those of you that remember, Tim was back on our podcast on episode 5. So if you haven't listened to episode 5, maybe press pause now and then go back in your podcast platform and listen to the work-life management episode where we talk about pretty much things beyond workload management, even though Tim's got a really good reputation for all of his work within the workload management sector. We dig a little deeper on that episode, and it was something that I really cherished. So when we were communicating about having him come back on, I was thrilled that he accepted again. I don't know why he was willing to put up with me one more time, but Tim, we're very grateful and very thankful for you to come on this evening or maybe morning, depending on where you're at. And just thank you again for coming on, and welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on, Alex. I can't remember. I can remember having our conversation, but I can't remember what we spoke about. So I'll have to go back and listen to that podcast as well.
We had an agenda. I have 3 or 4 questions for every speaker, every guest that we have, and it just goes to pot every time. With the conversation, such as life, we just kind of have a nice organic conversation on this show, and I keep calling it a show. I mean, it's almost like a hangout, really. And so I have a couple questions today that I'd love to ask you. Some of them were from just a couple of people I reached out to and said, "Hey, Tim's going to come on the show this week. You have any questions?" And so we'll unpack those a little bit. But for people that have even attended your class or listened to a previous episode with you, give us a quick update on workload management and just kind of your work in the last couple of years. Amongst even a pandemic and everything that's going on in Australia. So just give us a quick update on your life.
Yeah, well, look, for the last 2 years, I haven't been able to travel as much, which is there's some pros and cons with that. So for you could say COVID has taken away the things that I was doing regularly. It's taken part of what I did on a regular basis away. So I could be quite annoyed by that, but I've kind of chosen to flip it and say, for everything that's taken away, it's given me something as well. So, I'm able to sleep in my own bed. I get to hang out with my wife and my kids more, and I've got such a good structure to my own training. I've been able to just lay consistent training weeks on top of each other, weeks and weeks on top of each other. And, for the first time in a long time, I've been able to get some great gains with my training. So, it's taken some things away, but there's always a different way to look at it. And, I'm trying to look at it as a positive. And from a research standpoint, there's always stuff going on. It's probably allowed me to stand back a little bit and think about the areas where I'd like to go, and the things that I'd like to do research in. So, I've been able to expand a little bit more into the pain area and look at things like physical activity on pain, which is something that we don't really know a lot about. If someone's in pain, we try and tell them to get active, but then one of the things that tends to, or what they tell us, is that physical activity tends to exacerbate their symptoms. It flares the symptoms up. So, it's basically applying the things that we've done in sport to people in pain. I've been able to do a bit more work in adolescent athletes as well, which has been a lot of fun. For any of your listeners who work with adolescent athletes, we've just released a special issue on training the adolescent athlete in sports health, and it's just come out yesterday. It's the January issue, but it's come out early, and it's open access until the end of January. So every paper in that issue is available for free. So we've spent a lot of time on getting that information out there, and some really good papers looking at baseball and tennis and and weightlifting and strength training, early specialization. So there's a lot of really cool papers in that training the adolescent athlete special issue in Sports Health. And like I said, it's free. So up until the end of January. So get in before the end of January.
Yeah, brilliant. You just shared that on your social media, and so I immediately downloaded your paper on training the adolescent athlete. I think it's just like an editorial that I downloaded, but then I didn't know that the whole edition is accessible for the whole month. So we'll make sure we include that in the show notes so people can get access to it quickly.
Yeah.
That's pretty exciting stuff, though. You know, there's a big need for the adolescent athlete, and it's almost like they're no man's land. They're not a pediatric case, and they're not, they don't have the same anatomy and biomechanical, nature as an adult. So that's really an interesting age group. So go ahead. What were you going to say?
Yeah, well, look, skeletal maturation is challenging anyway, but then you overlay a sport on top of that, and you overlay the training demands for the sport, and then you overlay some of the extra stresses, whether it be psychological stress that comes with exams and school, or poor sleep that tends to come with being an adolescent and their social media use. It's a pretty challenging one to try and manage the training loads of adolescent athletes and to get it right. But there's some really good tips in a lot of these papers in terms of when you can load adolescent athletes, when you might need to hold their training load constant, so don't change the volume and intensity, and then when you can load again on the back of skeletal maturation. So yeah, like I said, if your readers or your listeners are interested in this, they're going to love this adolescent athlete special issue.
I think also coaches might appreciate the way that it clearly outlines the difference in these, anatomical differesences between, their middle school, high school, or even college age, if you're not fully musculoskeletal wise developed. So I think coaches would really appreciate the writing, because a lot of times they see that someone's been cleared to play, but that doesn't mean they're ready to play. And that's also a bone to pick with some medical providers that go like, yeah, you're good to go, you're cleared to play. And there's a whole, spectrum between cleared to play and then ready to compete. And some people, they can do that. They can go along that process really methodically and be relatively low in a risk category of getting re-injured. And others, whenever they try to speed up tissue healing, whatever that means, whenever they try to do, like I said, whenever they try to speed it up, it usually backfires, unfortunately. And sometimes coaches attribute that to, you're out of pain, that means you can play. And in the pain world, I know that that's not realistic. And I would imagine on the research side, you would see that as well. Although I'm open to being pushed back on that.
No, look, I tend to agree with that as well. I've heard some horror stories from different people. I've heard of an adolescent athlete with a high ankle sprain who had to be in a boot for 4 weeks, and the mother asked the doctor, well, when can he return to play? And the doctor said, well, as soon as he's out of the boot, he can play. So just because we've got biological healing, we've got tissue healing, doesn't necessarily mean that we're ready for the demands of the sport.
Right.
And there's other stories that you hear of coaches, and it's not the coach's fault. It's just, an understanding of a particular area. But you can have a 15-year-old athlete or 2 15-year-old athletes who are the exact same chronological age, but they could be vastly different in terms of biological age. One might look more like a 17-year-old, and the other one might look more like a 12-year-old. And then we can talk about it in terms of training age. Some one athlete might have 5 years of training history, consistent training under their belt, and the other one might have 5 minutes. They've just done the warm up, and there's no way that you can compare those two. They're both the same chronological age, but if you dig a little deeper, you have to try and look at these things when managing adolescents and athletes, because the individual within the team is really important. Trying to manage those differences gives you a pretty good chance of making sure that you've got as many of your team available to play. If you just throw them all together like a herd of cattle and say everyone's doing the same thing, it doesn't work very well in adults, but it's certainly not going to work well in adolescents.
Right. Right. I think in regards to the growth spurt that it typically, high school aged males, as I just completed my 7th season of coaching high school soccer. And there's this like this growth curve that, I have one family in particular, they've had 3 boys have come through our program. And as freshmen, they're little tiny scrawny bones. And then by the time they're seniors, they grow like a weed. And it's usually after their sophomore into their junior year, and they just spike up and they get more muscle. They're training, at home. So that is absolutely spot on. When they come in as a freshman, they look like they're 12. They really do. But they're 14 and then 15. And then when they leave at 18, they look like young men, and they have a lot of hormones have changed. They've developed muscle, and all of them are college ready players. Technique wise, they're very solid. But you're right, their training age had to really get congruent with their developmental age. So yeah, I appreciate that, and I like the papers that have focused on the adolescent athlete. So kudos, well done on those. I don't know your involvement. I don't know if you're like the main author on those, but either way, the work is tremendous on what you and your groups have been doing. How has your work with the teams been going through the pandemic? I know you were consulting with a bunch of programs and clubs worldwide. Have you been able to maintain a steady connection with them?
Yeah, well, certainly the teams that we work closely with, we maintain those relationships. It obviously changes throughout the pandemic, but they still want to prepare their athletes as well as possible. But now they've got to prepare them on the back of either COVID enforced lockdowns or going into these bubbles, or the stresses that are associated with testing on a regular basis, day in, day out. So we're still helping a lot of teams. And the Olympics was postponed for the year as well. So we did a lot with the Australian women's water polo team for the 2021 Olympics. And they were terrific to work with as well. Right from the players, the coaches, and all of the support staff. It was a really, really good group to work with in terms of alignment. Everyone had the same focus, the same goal. In the end, probably the biggest challenge for us was getting access to high-level international competition, because we just couldn't get it. So we had to play in order to get the best competition possible. We had to play against male youth teams, but even then they play a different style from the women's games. So, but we prepared as well as we could. We had a great system in place to monitor them, and the coaches were just terrific to work with. I really enjoyed working with them.
Awesome. You mentioned this earlier on in your own training, on kind of that feeling of isolation, or the feeling of you have to really stay engaged on your own training. And this just came to me that someone recently said, the only difference between struggle and effort is the presence of negative emotion. So most people struggle through a lot because they have a negative emotion associated with it. But it sounds like you efforted, if I can use that word, with positive emotion and you put effort into your own training program. How in your work in the last, at least through the pandemic, I'm really interested in how you stayed positive throughout that amongst, the chaos of the world. And the people that you worked with, how have you noticed the mental side of training impacted during this time?
Well, look, I can talk about the people I work with first. So there's probably three groups. There's some that just get on with it. They don't have a problem. They don't think too much about it. They just roll on with their life. There's others that are a little bit apprehensive about the future. There's a bit of anxiety around, well, what if this happens? What if the Olympics don't go ahead? What if I put all this work in and then I don't get to go? What if I don't get selected? All these different anxieties. And then there's probably a third group who it really affected quite badly. Who've crawled up in a ball on the couch, and they've kind of sustained themselves on choc chip cookies, and like they just haven't handled it well at all. And that can be a real challenge, because it becomes a habit, it becomes a cycle that you get in that cycle. The more time you spend on the couch and the less you do, the more you feel like staying on the couch and the less you feel like doing. So
We call that a doom loop, where it just spirals downward. Yep.
Yeah, and so I think working with those athletes, it's a matter of firstly, appreciating what they're going through, trying to understand things from their point of view, understand the different challenges that they're faced, putting yourself in that position for a moment so that you can empathise with them, but then also trying to break the cycle where you've got a job to do here. This is what you want. This is not something that I've dreamed up for you. This is your goal.
Right.
And in order for you to achieve this goal, you have to do some work. And in order for it to be quality work, you have to stay in the moment. We have to get in the moment and stay in the moment. So let's not think too far ahead. Let's not worry about things that may never happen. Let's just attack what's in front of us now.
Right.
And what's in front of us now is, we've got a solid running session to get through, or we've got a lift and we've got to win this session. So that's kind of the approach that I take with my athletes, and to be honest with you, it's probably the approach that I've taken with my own training. Funnily enough, I'm not a great planner. So if you ask me, well, what's the plans for the next 5 years? I go, well, look, I'll just see where life takes me. I don't really plan that much. I have a rough idea, but when it comes to my training, I don't think too far ahead. Like if I've got a hard 30-minute interval session, I'm not thinking I've got 20 of these efforts to do. 20 is a long way away. All I'm thinking of is one effort at a time. Just win this effort. Take a break. Take a breather. Calm down in the moment. Just calm down, relax, and then you're on again. If you think too far ahead, the finish line's too far away. So I try, and if I'm training, then I try not to let fatigue control me. That I'm in control of it, and I can do that in different ways. I've learned how to do that in different ways, and part of it's just with self-talk. The different things work at different times for me, and I when I was really young, I was lucky enough to learn how to control that fatigue. I got taught how to control that fatigue really early, and once I managed to learn that mental side of it, to control that mental side of it, I've been able to sort of take it through with my training since. So different things work at different times. 9 times out of 10, it'll work. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes, for whatever reason, I just can't get my head around the session. It's either too hot, or it's too humid, or I'm too fatigued, or whatever it is. But 9 times out of 10, I can control it. The general advice I would give to people throughout the last 2 years, and when you're going through bumpy rides in your life, or with your training, or with your performances, is sometimes you can't control the situation, but you can control your thoughts. So try and stay. You don't have to be fake positive, but just try and stay in control, stay in the moment, and you'll come out the other side, and you'll get through it. But if you go on the doom cycle,
the doom loop. Yep.
The doom loop.
Yep.
If you start to think, think this is the worst thing in the world, then it may end up being that. It may end up going down that loop. So just try and control your thoughts. Try and stay positive, and you can work your way through it.
I have a good friend of mine. You just reminded me of something that he said, that on a long run, maybe 8 or 10 miles, the thought will come into my head, just stop, just walk. Like you can just walk. You should just walk, and I will have this conversation in my head. And then my friend JC, who listens to our episodes, he said something just offhand the other day when I saw him. He's like, well, the complacent life is a slow death. And like that really resonated with me, because I'm so complacent if I just start walking, even though my goal was to run 8 miles at a certain pace. And it is such a doom loop where the moment I start walking, I think you shouldn't be walking, you should be running. But it feels good to walk. I'm tired, and you know what? You're right. I deserve to walk for the next couple of minutes. And then you start running again. And you're like, I should have never stopped, running. And you just, the mind just travels 1,000 miles a minute. And I realized I should have just kept running, So I can so relate to that. And so I have to have this internal conversation before I ever even start the run. I don't, because I know that I will start walking if I have the conversation during the run, if that makes sense. If I don't prep myself mentally, then it will catch me off guard, and I'll just start walking. So and then I come home and I'll tell my wife, I lost the mental battle today. I lost it, and she just looks at me like, because she doesn't have that problem. She can get to a pace and keep it for as long as, her training for running, has her go. Like I've seen her give birth 4 times. She can take her mind out of what her body is doing. And that's remarkable. Like I don't have that gift, So anyways, segueing.
Most men wouldn't handle childbirth, but yeah, look, I agree with you. It's the hardest part for me is the getting my head around the fact that it's going to hurt. So that the 30 minutes, the hour before I go out, that's the part. If I can get my head around that, then the actual physical work isn't too bad. So the mental prep in preparation for the physical work, I think, is really important. Really important.
I agree. And kind of tying this all together, I don't think, well, at least when I was an adolescent, I don't think that enough adolescents connect those 2 dots, where how they view a training session or a game leading up to, and kind of the mental prep that they either do or don't do, how it translates to their performance in a training session or in a game. That's just my opinion. From what I've seen like the ones that think through things, they're willing to endure more in the match or in the game. Just anecdotally, that's just my observation there. But I'm really interested in another thing you said earlier about your research into the pain world. Because after your course, that we had you a couple of years ago, there's coaches in the room. There's there's like head coaches of programs. There's athletic trainers. There were physical therapists, chiropractors. I'm trying to think. Is there anybody else that I missed? Strength and conditioning coach. Thank you. That's kind of important. Yeah. And we all were talking. We're all communicating, and then the providers in the room, at one point or another, we all kind of looked at each other and we said, this is great for the client's tracking, for workload management, but is there anything that's been developed for a patient, progression, regression, lateralization, so that was one question we got after your class was, what type of modifications would you make for the pain patient, or the person that's trying to progress through some sort of physical limitation? Do you have some type of, work that you've done on the pain patient? It sounds like that's what you're working on now.
Yeah, well, look, there is, and essentially, we're talking about athletes as well.
Right.
So when we're talking about patients, I use the word athlete because everyone is an athlete on different ends of the spectrum. So you could be a patient in pain, but you want to get back to some sort of task and either be able to manage the pain or be free of pain. So the principles that we use for athletes are exactly the same for pain patients. And let's think about an athlete where we train them physically, and physically they have to train really hard. But there's still athletes who fatigue really early in a game or in a training session, despite having really good physical qualities. So then you go, well, if they've got really good physical qualities and they're strong, they're aerobically fit, they're fast, they can repeat it, then it's clearly not a physical reason why they're fatiguing so quickly. So there must be something else that's contributing to that fatigue, and it's not biological, so it must be psychological or maybe sociological. So it's and it's the exact same thing with pain. We know that pain exists even in the absence of injury, or in the absence of tissue damage. So if those pain sensations are there in the absence of any biological reason, then they must be there due to some other reason. So just like athletes, where we're trying to work out, well, what is the trigger for the fatigue? Why is it this athlete fatigues so quickly despite being physically fit and strong? We're doing the same thing with patients in pain. What is it that's driving these sensations? If it's not physical, what are the triggers? And if we can understand what those drivers are, what those triggers are, then we can put some processes in place to try and manage the sensations, or reduce those sensations, or just help that patient live more freely with those sensations. They may never go away, but it might be just a matter of recognizing and acknowledging them, and acknowledging that they're there. That might be part of the process of accepting that it's there, and I have to try and work my way through those sensations. So the principles with an athlete, principles with a patient are exactly the same.
Brilliant. I think that was the best way that I've heard that explained, is and we say this to patients all the time, that pain is multifactorial, and so you creating, like a similar narrative, or at least, explaining it that way, that fatigue is also multifactorial. So that was a really helpful differentiator. So that's what I wrote down. That's why you see me writing, because I just want to make sure that I wrote it down and got it exactly the way that you said it, because that's spot on between and just to recap everything that you just said, the person in pain, there is a whole complex, system that is, manifesting itself as a signal of the sensation of pain. So I really, I can't emphasize enough the similarities between the fatigue in the athlete and pain in the patient. So, and you're right, it's the person, it's the athlete that has both pain and fatigue. So cool. Yeah, I like that a lot. How where does the research side come in when you're in, because when you're starting to research pain, it gets, I'm sure, a whole spectrum of topics that you could research. So where have you specifically dug a little deeper on the complex topic of pain and workload?
Well, in conjunction with one of one of our PhD students. His name's Tim Travail. He's probably a good guy to have on your show because he's doing a terrific job. He's working away at hip pain and looking at physical activity levels. So we know that spikes in load, rapid increases in load, increase injury risk, and they increase risk of underperformance and fatigue in athletes. He's taking that principle and saying, well, does it apply to patients in pain? And this is one thing that we don't really know much about is does physical activity levels change pain? Now, so he's working on a systematic review to look at firstly step counts, and does physical activity via step counts, does that change your pain? He's done some qualitative studies as well. So he's done a heap of interviews with patients with pain to look at common themes in what they believe, their perceptions of pain, and what their beliefs around pain, what flares it up, and the belief from the people that he's interviewed the patients that he's interviewed is that exercise and intensity does flare it up. That's their beliefs. And then his final project will look at a cohort study where we're looking at acute and more habitual activity levels to determine whether spikes in load do change symptoms, pain, sensations. So it'll be the first one that I'm aware of that's actually done that. Now, the challenge with a lot of systematic reviews is, if you look at, I think there's one that's floating around at the moment looking at strength training on pain, and the results say that there's no evidence to say that strength training improves pain outcomes. So, you can interpret that one of two ways. You can go, okay, well, anyone who's advocating for strength training for a patient in pain is wrong because it doesn't do anything. Or you could just say, well, okay, well, there may be not enough evidence to say that strength training works, but maybe there's just not enough evidence to say that strength training doesn't work either.
Right.
So and this is the problem when you grab a social media post that's 100 characters long, the more provocative it is, the more likely it is that people will notice. But you've got to be pretty discerning when you read these posts. I would always say go back to the original research if you can, or take the time to ask, to contact the people who've done the research to get, if you don't want to wade your way through a big systematic review, if you don't have the time, then just take the time to reach out to people. I don't know too many researchers who get contacted and then not want to answer the question. They want people interested in their work. So, right. That goes for the lay population as well. Don't be afraid to reach out to researchers, and if you don't understand them because they've using scientific jargon, then just tell them to can you explain it again for me? And that'll be a good challenge for them because a lot of them can't do it.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a good idea to just go to the original source if you can. Don't rely too heavily on a tweet when you're looking at the findings of complex studies.
Yeah, that's why I like the podcast vibe, because then I can ask, or the host can ask, and then it turns into a nice dialogue, But compared to like what you said, very transactional, just like, okay, here's a post, here's a response, here's a comment, and then you blink and you're like, wow, we went back and forth, and I don't know if you understand where I'm coming from. I don't think you're, so I think there's a lot of, beauty and benefits of social media, but there's also like a lot lost in translation, again, in my opinion. But speaking of social media, I sent out a note to a couple of people and just said, hey, Tim's going to be on the show this week. Any questions that you have for him. And someone screenshotted a tweet from a gentleman, and he's a critical thinker. He thinks through things on many different angles. And let me just read you what he put out there in regards to workload management. So he said this: through no fault of researchers, it is my opinion that running injury prevention is primarily principle-based rather than evidence-based. Current load management is no better now than it was 15 to 50 years ago. Should I reconsider? And I read through that, and I've got my opinions on it, but the people that asked us, to ask you some questions wanted your take on running related workload management. And is it 15 to 50 years? Is it any better than it was 15 to 50 years ago?
Oh, look, there's a couple of answers, I suppose. The first thing is, everyone's entitled to an opinion. Everyone's got one, and anyone who's done, an ounce of training knows something about training, and or considers them an expert in training. So, it's not for me to say whether their opinion is right or wrong. But in general, I would say this. I've worked with some coaches in the past, some really good coaches, experienced coaches, and they would joke with me that they'd never had sports scientists in the past, and now the sports scientists are just proving things that they already knew, or writing about stuff that they already knew. So in many respects, training load management probably hasn't changed that much. The principles of training haven't changed. They're still the same as they ever were. I've spoken to my dad about it, and you and I, that he was very influential in my life with training, and he coached a lot of really good runners. Was involved in a lot of in training a lot of football teams, and I say commonly, I learned more about training from him than I ever learned from any textbook. And that was, more than 30 years ago. The stuff that he was talking about then is the same stuff we're talking about now, except he didn't have the fancy words for it. In a lot of ways, it's probably correct. I'd like to think that, it's probably the law of diminishing returns a little bit, that, over time, as we start building on the knowledge of the people who've come before us, as we're all just standing on the shoulders of someone who came before us, and we're just building on that knowledge. I'd like to think that we're not going to get these massive revelations around training. They're just going to be probably small, they're going to be little increments of knowledge. We're going to get better and better just by little bits. So, 50 years ago, we probably made some massive inroads when it comes to training and understanding how the body adapts to training and the positive and the negative responses that come with training. But as a result of that, we don't have the same scope for improving our knowledge in the area now. We know so much about training, we've learned so much, so we're just getting little bits of improvement as we go. But every paper that comes out is a new piece of information. It's a new piece of the puzzle. So anyone who thinks they've got the puzzle sorted out, I say, oh well, good on you for that. I certainly haven't got the puzzle worked out. I often describe it as training load management is like a puzzle that you think you've completed, and then you stand back from it a little bit, and then you see all of these loose pieces, and we're always just trying to add another piece to the puzzle. But it's a puzzle that, in my mind, it'll never truly be completed. I personally don't think it'll be completed. It certainly won't be completed in my lifetime. I will finish my role in doing what I'm doing, knowing that I've learned a hell of a lot about training load, and knowing that the more I dig into it, the more I learn and the less I feel I know. What I also know is that, if we go back to my dad's era when he was training, things that we know now around stress and sleep, I think we've got a much better understanding around those things. They're accepted a lot more. I don't think we probably knew as much about them then, but yeah, as I say, I think we're always learning things, and every time a new paper comes out, that should just tweak what you believe about a certain topic just a little bit. It doesn't mean you have this massive swing in the pendulum and you go, well, I no longer believe that anymore, I believe this. But it just means that for each piece of new information, and even if it conflicts with what you previously thought about a topic, it should just change your thinking a little bit, shape your thinking a little bit, and go, okay, well, this is a new piece of information. How do I reconcile that with what I currently know? How does that fit with my puzzle? So that's probably the best way I can respond to that, the tweet. As I said, it's an opinion. Everyone's entitled to an opinion. I suggest it was probably put out as much to promote a conversation around a topic as anything, with probably no right or wrong answers. And I suspect the person who put it out probably wasn't actually looking for a definitive answer. He was probably just looking to create a conversation.
Yeah, I think he does a good job of that online. It certainly, well, I'll just say his name. So his name is Greg Lehmann, and he puts his course on, and he says this within his course, and I've maybe shared this before, but he talks about how, like, in our clinical careers, we are aspiring to make it to like the pinnacle of our clinical knowledge and practice expertise, and we think that once we get to the top of this, this climate, when we get there, that there's someone on the other side of a fence, and we can like talk to him and say, hey, like I've made it, but nobody's there. Like nobody's actually made it up there. And so he just tries to give that visualization that, it's a conversation, yes, and it's a tweet, yes, but it's more of it's not that anyone has done anything wrong. It's more so there might not be a right or a wrong answer to this, but let's just have a conversation and let's dialogue about it. He's very much against just doing things because that's what we've always done. And he's like, I want a better rationale for why we do things with people in pain. So anyways, he is a person that I took his class, and I like what you said. It shifted the way that I look at the complexities of pain just a little bit. And then, took another class from somebody else and it shifted just a little bit. And so he gets credit, in my opinion, for giving me the platform and the information to rethink the way that I've communicated, the complex, nature of pain. But anyways, I digress. He put that out there because really, I think that workload management became almost like a buzzword or a phrase, and it just became popular. And you read on ESPN, James Harden is taking a day off for, load management. And then it became, cool, and it became that people want to do X, Y, and Z under the guise of load management. I think that that's where he's coming from, that just because it's cool or hip or trendy doesn't mean that it's right for your athlete or your patient right in front of you. So I think that that's where he's coming from. But maybe I'll have him on and we'll digest it, or we'll dig a little deeper in what he meant on that tweet.
Yeah, well, look, I don't. In terms of load management, I think though the term load management is probably a term the media have made up. Prior to me reading in the media, I'd never really used the term. It's not a term that I would have used in the day-to-day work with my athletes and coaches. The other thing that I think the media have kind of created this this perception that load management involves rest, that load management involves managing your athletes away from training or away from the game. And I can give you an example. I was in New Orleans, and I was printing up the handouts for a workshop that I was doing in New Orleans, and the guy behind the counter at the FedEx store said like read it, and he saw load management, and then he went into this complete rant about load management and how it's rubbish, and I pay my hard-earned dollars so that I can watch LeBron play. If I want to watch LeBron play, I don't want him rested due to load management. I'm going, oh, don't shoot the messenger. Just like like it's it is so far away from what I stand for in training. Like load management, if we take a step back from the words load management, all we're talking about is the principles of training. And one of those principles is overload, progressive overload. But it's not the only principle we use in training. And recovery is a principle, but it's not the only principle we use. So it's one part of what might fall under the umbrella of load management, but load management is not just about rest. I have to really keep reminding people about that training is about producing robust and resilient athletes. It's about getting your athlete to game day as often as possible in the best shape as possible. It's about having your athletes so well prepared that they can perform the practices required to learn the skills to execute the coach's game plan. It's about giving athletes to coaches more rather than taking them away. It's actually quite. It's more of a media thing that I get frustrated with.
So the media didn't tell the truth, the whole truth. They didn't. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, look, I know it doesn't sound. Look, they just didn't. I think they probably just interpreted it the way they thought load management was. So you can't entirely blame the media. Maybe someone at the time fed them the line load management and associated with resting a player, and from that's where the connection grew. Who knows where it started, but it's certainly not about rest for me. And it's about using a wide range of principles of training to get the best out of your athletes.
I love it. Obviously, I'm biased. I love your work. I love the class. I'm excited to have you back in 2022. Tell us about your plans in the new year. I know it's just a few weeks away, so tell us what you got in store coming up next year.
Okay. Well, first I'm going to tell you about the Boxing Day race, because that is a big event.
Okay.
It started as a one-off event last year where myself and my sons raced against each other in a 5K, but now it's an annual event. So me and my sons will be racing on Boxing Day. It's a handicapped event based on PB, so that it's designed to elicit a photo finish. There is a shield, a massive shield involved. It is going to be a big event, so keep an eye on that. It is very competitive. There's a lot at stake, but that's going to be kind of like a family. It's been a really good thing for my sons and I to do.
I love it.
I'll post a few photos of the shield once we've.
Yeah, I gotta see what that looks like. I'm very, very interested in seeing what that looks like.
Yeah, like it's something that you would look at and you would say, wow, this is an event I wouldn't mind winning. It's a good shield. From there, the New Year's is going to be interesting because we've everything's opened up for Australia. International travel is open up again. So the first country I'll be heading to is the US. I'll be working with a few teams over there, and also doing some public workshops, some 2-day workshops on the weekend. So, and in May, we're heading back to Chicago. So we'll catch up.
Let's go.
Yeah, and we might have to fit in a run or something so that.
I don't know if I can keep up with you.
No, look, you'll be okay. You'll be okay.
Well, it depends. Like if we do like a lengthy run, I think I might have you on that. But if we do like a couple 400s or a couple 200s, I might be toast at that. And you do like 20, 22 rounds of those things. I can't do that. I don't think I could do that.
We'll just go for a long, easy run, and where we're talking. You can show me a bit of Chicago as we run, and
awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we can even what we could do is on day 2 of the course, we'll offer the early morning run for anyone who wants to see a bit of Chicago, or and it's just a jog talk pace, so that's comfortable. Everyone's comfortable. We can just start the day on a good note.
I think that'd be awesome. That'd be an incredible experience, not just to go to downtown. I think I have a particular spot in downtown Chicago that would be epic. That would be brilliant for something of this nature. And that would be a wonderful experience for the participants to just be able to run and chat with you and chat with others. And so I love that idea. I really do.
Yeah. Well, look, that's the fun. Like, we have a lot of fun in the workshop. We have a lot of laughs, and there's a lot of, there's your standard kind of lecture material, but then there's a lot of practical, hands-on type stuff that requires you to kind of apply the knowledge and also work with others and learn from others as well. But the social parts of it are a lot of fun. So I'm thinking back to when I was in Chicago last time. I met people there that I've caught up with outside in different states in the US, a number of times. And we might go out for dinner or something, and have a couple of drinks. If people drink, they can drink. If they want to have a soda, they can have a soda. It's just a really relaxed. So we have that kind of thing. So to have a little activity in the morning where we get have a nice easy run and finish with a coffee together or something would be pretty cool.
Those are 2 of my love languages right there, running and coffee. If you add let's see, if you add Chicago style pizza, I mean, I don't know, I might just keel over and yeah.
Yes, that's what I need to get back to as well.
We'll make it happen. I will make sure that we have Chicago style pizza when you're in. Just to confirm, May 14th, 15th, 2022 in Chicago. We are excited to have you back. We plan on selling out the course. We can fit comfortably, we can fit 18, but in our space, we can get up to 24 people if we cram a little bit. We had 33 people for a class, and it was a bit cramped in there. So if we go above 24 people, we'll book a local sports performance gym that we're close friends with. They've got a massive facility, so if we need to, we can always get a bigger space. But nice. at our office, we'll take the first 24 at our office, and if people register pretty quickly, then we'll book a bigger venue. How does that sound?
Yeah, really looking forward to it. Like I said, that was such a great way to start my trip last time. I left. There were things that happened last time. Like I lost my luggage. Like things that could go wrong on a flight went wrong. Yeah. But I went to Chicago and I'd lost my luggage and I was still feeling so upbeat. Like I was like, what's going on? This guy's he's lost his luggage. He's got no clothes to wear, but he's so happy because I left there and it was just such a great vibe with the group, good vibe with you as well. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to going back there actually.
Oh, well, we talked about this on the first episode that we recorded, but the variety of people that attend your courses, I don't think the average person recognizes the variety of the group. The people that I talked to, there's a lot of providers that were interested in taking the course. And then when, in the course, there's a lot of coaches and there's strength coaches, and they kind of come and they maybe understand that maybe, okay, there'll be some medical providers and that sort of thing, but to have actual coaches, show up for the class. Remember the rowing coach from Notre Dame was there, and soccer coaches have listened to the podcast, and friends of mine that coach as well. They listen to what we have to say, and they're asking me questions about things. I'm like, well, this is Tim Gabbett's work. This is, the concept of workload management. And I'm like, and he's coming back. You should take the class when it comes back. So there's coaches. The leading group of interested individuals is probably coaches, either youth coaches or high school coaches, but there's certainly a large amount of people that are interested in taking your class when you come back.
Well, look, that yours was, I think, probably one of the first times where we'd had a sport coach come along.
Cool.
So, the rowing coach from Notre Dame, and then when he's doing one of the practical activities, he's leading the activity on return to play. Like that was outstanding. I thought, and what he came up with was really, really good.
It was. That's the thing. It's one thing to participate and put yourself out there. He put himself out there and was good at it.
Yeah. It was. I was blown away at the fact that he was there in the first place, but blown away how well everyone just interacted, and I think if you come along, everyone's a little bit vulnerable. Like I put myself out there and say straight away, I don't have all the answers for you, but if there's something that you ask and I don't have the answer for, I'll see if I can find it out for you, or I'll give you my best scientific rationale on what I think is happening, and participants are a little bit vulnerable as well, because they're going into a space where they're saying, this is something that I don't know everything about, or I want to learn more about, and they're saying, I don't know the answer to that, and I'll say to someone else in the group, do you know the answer? Can you help me with that? So there's a level of vulnerability there, but everyone's there for the right reasons, and that's what makes it. I think such a positive environment. You leave there feeling. I just think I certainly leave there feeling really good about. I guess I don't want to get too mushy, but I feel good about humankind. Like that. There's some good people out there that are doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, that's if I can, kind of promote the type of attendee, or the type of person that listens to this type of show. It's like a lifetime learner, and someone that their ego is not the size of this room. It's someone that understands that we're all in this sandbox. We can sit nicely, we can play together nicely, because we're all trying to help either our clients, our athletes, or in our world, our patients, because I say this when I teach, is that I believe that I need to bring the best version of Alex to the table, because our patients deserve the best version of me. And if you're ready to become the best version of yourself and learn and then how to apply it, then a class with Tim is one of the things you should consider doing, because this is one of those things that will only add to your clinical or performance or sports coaching repertoire. And so anyways, that's my little shameless plug, that the type of person that feels like they've made it, that is saturated up here, they're probably not going to enjoy the classes we put on, because like they're pretty complacent. They have a comfortable clinical practice, and maybe they're busy enough for whatever reason. But if they're like me and they want to just keep going, they're always like chasing this goal. It just keeps moving a little bit farther away from me. I'm just gonna keep racing after it, and it sounds like you're the same. You're just gonna keep getting after it, and that's one of the reasons why I really like you, Tim. So thank you. Thanks for setting the bar extremely high and keeping the mentality that you're gonna race after it. You're gonna chase after it, and so I appreciate it. Thanks for again taking some time out of your day. I can't wait to see you in May. We'll have a good time. And any closing comments that you have for our listeners?
Oh, look, no, just thanks for having me on again, Alex. It's always good talking to you. And what I will say to people about any sort of troubles or stress in their life, it applies to training. Don't be fearful of training. Move towards training. If you can't do something at the moment, move towards it, and it'll get easier. and it's the same with dealing with stress. If you get stressed in speaking in public, don't shy away from it. Just gradually move towards it, and you'll get better at it. And that's a bit of a thing I have with all sort of things in my life, is just move towards things rather than running away from it. And it kind of opens a whole new world up for you if you can do that. So looking forward to catching up on 14th and 15th of May. But
yeah. Awesome. I think that's a great place to stop. So thank you, Tim.
Yeah.
Again, appreciate your time, and we'll get all of this typed up, send into a show notes, and we'll publish this and send it your way. And we'll have the event registration page queued up in the next day or so. So those that are interested in seeing Tim going through the course and enjoying a nice Chicagoland run early in the morning on probably Sunday, May 15th is what I'm thinking. We'll make sure that the registration page gets sent out. We'll send it over to you if you want to put it up on your website, Tim. And we'll get this taken care of properly, and we'll plan on another exciting class with you in May of 2022. Okay, my friend?
Terrific.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Alex.